3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Oh, new year, new me. This is going to be a good one. I can feel it.
Each year is akin to the last, a never-ending trudging towards the end of all things.
What?
And all the world are fools bandying about with trinkets and bilge.
Bilge? The outside of a ship? I haven't seen any of those.
Barnacles, then, on the hull, are all the people of the world grasping cantankerously to the measly segment of the vessel of life that they may call their own. The vessel that even now travels down the river Styx to Hades' lightness realm.
Bleak? There's got to be something worth holding out for, though. I mean, the Olympics are on this year.
The Olympic Games? Zeus's ultimate monument to ego?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love synchronized swimming.
And that's how to, truly get yourself ready for a new year is just think about
the Olympics.
People in funny little hats with plugs in their nose flapping about in the water.
It's all you need, really, for happiness,
What
I
a
think.
silly sport, though.
It is silly. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP, brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. It's 2024. I am a bore, and I am your host, Walt.
Hello, Commander Players. I'm your other host, James, and let's get ready to play some games.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so you had it written down. I had to think of one on the spot there.
Yeah. That is your way, to be fair.
And to be honest, there'll be some gems that are hidden in the rough. But look, as per usual, we do have some announcements before we get into the transmission for this week. But it's a new year, which means new stuff, more, lots more stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And a really big, exciting announcement is Walt and I are going to CanCon.
Yeah.
In Canberra. So we're going to be at the Exhibition Park in Canberra throughout the event's entire weekend over the 26th to the 28th of January.
So this one's in Canberra, for those who don't know. So if you are one of our Melbourne listeners, we understand there's a few of those. It may be a bit of a trek for you.
We're going to drive up.
We're driving up. We'll be there the whole weekend, for sure. It's going to be sweet. So there's going to be 3 days worth of Commander games.
Yes.
Is the main bit. So we will be firmly in the Commander section of the event.
The entire time.
Yeah. It's kind of like a mini Command Fest.
It's like a mini Command Fest inside a huge convention for tabletop trading card games, role-playing games. There's so much at CanCon. I've been told it's one of the biggest conventions for games in Australia. So wow. I'm pretty excited. But firstly, I just want to quickly say a huge thank you and a shout out to Good Games Australia for asking Walt and I to come along, but also letting us assist in this huge command zone free play area. Yeah. Walt and I, we don't want to say and guarantee anything per se, but considering Ravnica Remastered will be coming out in a week or something after this episode releases.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We will be having some fun on the plane of Ravnica. Yeah. Maybe a few giveaways, maybe a few times to interrupt your games and have Get Commanded run some chaos in the world a little bit. But we're going to be there the entire time, and Good Games invited Walt and I to come along and be a part of the whole thing. And Good Games are the major partner for CanCon, so they have a huge section. Like a third of the convention is made up of just Good Games.
Wow,
yeah.
I didn't know it was that much. No, that's going to be sweet. And we're stoked. We honestly can't wait. So we hope to see some of you there. But we do have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
"2023 was a momentous year for our cohort. largely due to the insights gleaned from your transmissions. What one needs in future can be identified upon reflecting on what has passed, both triumphant and unfortunate.
Oh, this is very Space Commanders being like,
very much.
We've done a whole year, review it.
Yeah, and look to the future as well. This feels more like their usual way of looking at things. We don't get to just talk about what we thought of things. It's always like, and learn something from it.
There's got to be a lesson in there somewhere.
There's got to be a lesson. So yeah, we're looking at 2023, but specifically it looks like, because they said what we need in future is being identified based on what has passed. So
basically what we want this year.
Yeah, what we want in 2024 based on how we thought 2023 went.
Well, it was like overall pretty good year.
It was a great year.
For like Commander and Magic in general.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of contentious things. We're probably going to talk about that in this episode.
Definitely.
But 2023, banger.
Yeah.
Certified banger.
I think it's the... Like, if we were comparing to other years, I think certainly there were fewer missteps. Like, in general.
I reckon 2021, 2022
was
very contentious. Wizards did some stuff that really upset the community.
Yeah. And there'll still be... There's not to say there won't be stuff this year, because we will talk about that as well. But I think there was less of it. And I think there was just larger highlights as well. I mean,
better wins.
Yeah. Paper Magic is doing fantastic.
It's like
there's proper... not
tournaments,
not GPs, but tournaments. Yeah, tournaments are back.
Good Games are running that ANZ Super Series. Yeah. There's events in the state. We've had the Magic Con tour, the global tour. I mean, like, we've even had, I know it's a bit like more of content, but we've had a global year-long Commander competition through Command Zone. They ran a Commander game at every single Magic Con.
Yeah.
And they did like an overall tournament. It wasn't an official tournament.
No,
it wasn't like you could qualify to get on it. But it was still, that's Paper Magic in person with an audience. That's awesome.
It was really good as well. I think the best way to get our read on 2023 is to start by talking about the sets.
Yeah, just running through what came out this year.
Yeah, so basically there's sort of like two... There are main sets and then there are supplementary products, right? This has always been the case with Wizards and especially with Magic, but I think particularly lately, the supplementary products and the main set balance is about equal these days, which wasn't historically the fact.
Supplementary sets, it used to be like you had your standard sets, there'd be a Commander product, and maybe a modern product. Well, that was it.
Yeah, and the Commander product was once a year.
Yes,
and there was Commander 2014.
Yes,
and those were the precons. Yeah, that was all you had. So, the main sets that we had come out this year, in February we had Phyrexia, All Will Be One.
Mm-hmm.
April we continued that with March of the Machine. And then in May, we had Aftermath, which we will talk about.
Yeah.
So that was that sort of 3-set main arc of the Phyrexian invasion, though it was obviously set up as far back as Coldheim and that kind of thing.
You'll remember, the booster packs had like a card in them. Like one card wrapped in tinfoil. That was what the set was.
It offered so much to us. This is not a main set, but it was close enough that I consider it one because it's legal in so many formats. Lord of the Rings came out in June.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of like our Modern Horizons-y type
probably
big set, right?
Yeah, because it's not standard legal, but it's legal in like Pioneer and Vintage
and Modern,
and Commander, like pretty much everywhere else, just not standard. And then in September we had Wilds of Eldraine, and November we had Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So there were 5 standard sets and the Lord of the Rings, which is kind of like a semi-standard set. This year.
Yeah. And then we had like other sets come out through the year as well, which again aren't standard legal, but had a lot of cards for Commander. Like, for example, in January, we got Dominaria Remastered, which was huge reprint set.
Yep.
In August, we had another massive reprint set for specifically us in the year of Commander, which apparently is every year since Commander became a format. Commander Masters was in August. What a birthday present to me. I remember the pre-release was on my birthday.
Yeah, I gave you your birthday present on like at the midnight pre-release as well.
It was great fun.
That was fun.
And then October, we had one of the biggest crossovers of IPs of the year. We had Lord of the Rings, but we also had Doctor Who Commander. It was amazing.
Those 4 Commander decks.
And then, I'm not sure if you know this, but we had 50 secret lairs.
I am aware because Tolarian Community College had his prediction that there would be more secret lairs than weeks of the year
so
last year.
we had more secret lairs than weeks of the year.
They
that
did.
Is
I think
just
they
insane.
Ended up reaching, it was like 54 or something. So, yeah.
You know when we talk about product burnout for players, when we're like talking about, wow, we got so many products. I feel sorry for the workers at Wizards of the Coast who have to like produce more than one secret lair a week.
It's wild.
I mean, look, mental.
The one thing I will say in favor of secret lairs is like they commission so much art. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
The art is always
incredible.
new. And the artist showcases are my favorite because they celebrate some of the artists who have like made massive contributions to our game over the years. But even just like when they do, like even if it's a goofy new style, obviously there are people who don't draw in that style who they will then commission, like new artists to Magic to bring in a new style of doing art.
And I always think like if you don't like secret lair or like one of the secret lairs in the arts, don't buy it. But for someone out there, someone would have looked at that and gone, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen, and I want that in my commander deck.
I mean, they keep on making them.
Yes,
like
they clearly
goofy,
sell.
Weird text, like ones are becoming more and more common. Lots to be said about accessibility, and I mean accessibility in terms of ability to read the cards.
Yes, well, I mean, like
those, but
some of them, like I'm a huge fan. They've done a few of these secret lairs now where they're like metal band posters, and I love them, but. Okay, I've been in the metal scene for years.
Yeah.
I can't read some of those cards.
No. They're like, some of them, and they seem to be getting worse at this, I will say. The earliest ones were kind of goofy, and then they've gone like all in on like, oh no, you won't be able to read the card.
Yeah, it looks like worse for Phyrexian. There used to be there used to be a joke in the metal community where if your band's logo, if your band's name looks like a bundle of sticks that's just been thrown on the ground, you're a real metal band.
Wow, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no instruments needed.
What's your band called?
Yep. That's nice. Yep. That's cool. You release an album. I'll buy it. Nice. I love when
our favorites of the year. Okay, so we've now gone through the whole year.
Yes.
Well, I have a feeling I know what your favorite set of the year is. Just because you are someone that never buys sealed product. And I saw you engage in more of the sealed product of this than any other set you've ever opened.
Because you bought me some for my birthday.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Okay, I'm right then. It was Lord of the Rings.
It was Lord of the Rings. I actually didn't buy any. Well, that's not true. I bought some of this product for my brother for Christmas.
Yes, but also anytime you could pick a prize pack, you always chose Lord of the Rings.
Look, I had an absolute blast opening those packs that you got me. You got me the sealed thing with the scene cards, the 4, the One Ring and Frodo and Sam and Gollum. That particular one. Yeah, this was so fun to see in Magic. I have expressed on the podcast before my hesitation towards the crossovers in general. I think a lot of them are not done very well.
This is the perfect setting for it, though.
It's literally like the inspiration for half of the stuff in the game originally is like if you look at the way goblins are designed, and if you look at the way that elves are designed, like it's just every IP that was made around that time, Tolkien was just like the biggest inspiration you could have. Not to say it's like derivative, but it's coming from there. And as a result, it just seamlessly slides into Magic. Like all of the creature types and stuff are familiar and make sense.
Like some of the mechanics that came across were just like, it made so much sense. Like Monarch, that like chase for the kingdom in the precons that we got. Like
they did so much right. Like the design of the Nazgul was so cool. Yeah. The way they made the ring tempting. Yeah.
I actually thought as far as the designs, like for example, in the Doctor Who set, they had time travel.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot simpler than the ring tempting you. Like,
I mean, you didn't have to have a whole card for that, right?
Yeah, like time travel is just like anything that has a time counter, do something with it, however you want to.
Remove or add, that's it.
And that is a really simple mechanic to explain. And in my opinion, time travel as an IP crossover mechanic is better than the ring temps. But I was like struggling for a while to think, okay, how are you going to make the ring tempting you a mechanic in Magic. And I spent ages thinking about it, and I genuinely think the way they did it is just good enough to be like, this is a real encapsulation of the lore of the ring, but also it's relevant enough in game that in limited you want to be able to do it.
Oh, in limited it was super relevant.
Yeah, and I think that they just did that line well enough that it made me go, you know what? Bravo, because I couldn't have done it any better.
Yeah.
No way.
I mean, that's the thing is like you have to demonstrate its effect that it has on you over time. So the tiered system that they have makes the most sense, right? Like you become stronger, but the ring becomes stronger. Anyway, yeah, they did that really well. I also want to specifically shout out the art for this set. Everything just looked so beautiful, and especially all of the peripheral stuff, like all of the little
scene cards,
all the little like the little pamphlets that you get in sealed products and stuff, all the play mats, all of the boxes. Like the when you buy the sort of fat pack style things, like gift bundles, and they come in those sort of fat packs, like the long sort of
even the dice, the special edition dice that they had, they were gorgeous.
Everything was just like, it felt Lord of the Rings, and it was gorgeous, and it felt Magic. Like I don't think they could have done it basically any better. And look, I'm obviously biased. It's an IP that I care deeply about and have for pretty much my entire life. But like, they nailed it. They so easily, I want to be clear here, they so easily could have failed this. Like, just because it's Lord of the Rings
for sure
doesn't mean I would have said it's my favorite set of the year. They could have stuffed up the mechanics, they could have stuffed up the lore, they could have made it not fit into Magic very well, and I wouldn't have liked this set very much. But they nailed all of that, and it's my favorite IP. Like, you just can't go wrong.
If anything, they could have really screwed up. Because like the crossover of fans is 1-to-1. Like, pretty much everyone that plays Magic has also watched or read Lord of the Rings.
The amount of like knowledge and also expectation that the Magic community has towards Lord of the Rings is so high, and you can see that in how friggin' stupid they got about the fact that Aragorn was black.
Yeah, oh my god.
Which, by the way, I want to be really clear, I loved that. All it took for me, I want to be clear on this, I saw one TikTok from a black Magic creator who expressed how meaningful it was to him to see himself represented on a card, and that was enough for me to just go like, that's great. I don't care how accurate the lore is or whatever, if it means that much to someone to see themselves represented on a card, and about friggin' time too.
Yeah, true.
No, I loved that, but yeah.
I came at it from a little bit of a different perspective. I came at it from like, as a white Anglo-Saxon man, I saw a black man represented on a card of like a hero, and I went, cool. It doesn't matter to me. It genuinely didn't matter at all. And like, I respect, and when I hear those stories of people going, I have now got representation on a card who I not only play but also admire the character and the lore and I aspire to, I go, that's great, I love that. But my immediate reaction was, that was my immediate reaction. It was actual silence because I didn't care.
It doesn't matter. Yes, I remember seeing so many people being like, but what about like, the little white kids who want to have white Aragorn? It's like, cool.
The three movies that they have produced.
The films. You can watch the films. Anyway, I don't want to rag on about that. We're not a politics podcast, but I love that set. I think it was amazing. What was your favorite set of the year?
Well, look, I think the other major IP, Doctor Who, for me, I am more of a Doctor Who nerd than I am a Lord of the Rings nerd. And I think you're more a Lord of the Rings than you are a Doctor Who nerd.
Yes.
Probably.
I would say that.
I loved it. And I thought, again, the time travel mechanic was like accurate and simple to explain and just fit well. The decks were amazing. The fact that they just brought out stuff you could brew with. I loved it, but I think it fell short on a couple of things in terms of the decks were very complicated. And I
really complicated.
And the whole point of these IP crossovers, in my opinion...
Complicated. Very complicated.
Very complicated.
Only a Whovian will get that. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Nailed that. But like, the whole point of these IP crossovers was to make the game appealing to non-Magic players. Like, to bring Doctor Who fans into Magic with the, like, oh, you could play the 14th Doctor, the new David Tennant Doctor, as your commander. Oh, come on, get it. They were so complicated. I felt bad trying to send the cards as like to my friends that watch Doctor Who but don't play Magic to be like, you should play this, because the cards are just complicated. Yeah. And like so confusing. I've got a couple of friends who do listen to this podcast, by the way. Shout out Mercedes and Ben. they're Doctor Who nerds as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to buy the rest of the precons and have a game night with my partner and them.
Yeah.
To be like, here's Doctor... And I played it. The first time I played the 4 precons together, I was like, I'm losing it. Like, I'm making token copies of cards. That's a whole... Like, it was just an absolute mess. So that's why it's not my favorite.
Okay. All right.
Commander Masters was my favorite.
Ooh.
For a couple of reasons. One, I think the reprints in it were needed. I think we got some incredible reprints. We got the medallions reprinted in that.
Yep, that was a long time coming. Yep.
We got Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting SWAT.
That whole cycle.
The free cycle of spells.
Yep.
That price needed to come down. But also, the reason I loved it, and I really hope the Space Commanders asked me to do like a review on Commander Draft. Because I think it is such a hard thing to get right, and they've done it a few times now, and every single time it has gotten better.
Yeah.
And Commander Masters was the best draft environment I think they've done for Commander so far.
Well, this was the one where they trialed the new thing where when you would draft a monocolored legendary creature, for the purposes of draft, those creatures have partner.
Yes.
So you could just draft, I drafted a deck with, I think like a mono
Thrix
green.
the Sudden Storm.
Yeah, I had Thrix the Sudden Storm, and then my green creature was,
Morrowind?
What's the elf who ETBs and you put counters on stuff?
Oh, Rishkar.
I had Rishkar and Thrix were my 2 in the command zone.
You pulled a Crater Hoof in that pre-release, didn't you?
I did. That was my first pick.
That was pack one.
I was like, all right, I'm building Simic Stompy.
See, like I built like a green-black Monarch deck using Joriel, where it's whenever you draw your second card for turn, you make a 2/2 cat.
Yeah, great card.
The whole point of my deck was just to make myself Monarch for as long as possible. So I was drawing 2 cards a turn and making a 2/2 every turn.
Yeah.
That's enough value in draft to win.
Yeah.
I also had Razaketh as my second commander, just as a...
Seems good.
Yeah. A kind of haymaker finisher, but like it was such a fun draft environment. Not only because I annihilated that draft and it was on my birthday. I think those might be influencing my answer a little bit. But I genuinely think the set as a reprint set was fantastic. And I think the environment of limited Commander is like untouched territory. And I think that in 2024, there could be some new things that happen in limited Commander. We could even see have it at events like at Command Fest or something like that. Because even at Command Fest this year, there wasn't any Commander limited. It was just play Mystery Booster limited or Lord of the Rings limited. And I'm like, yeah, cool. But this is about the format of Commander. It's about being put in a pot of 4 and having politics and communication be a part of the game. Yeah. And the set just nailed that.
That's fair. I definitely enjoyed the price of singles after that set came out.
Yeah.
I think my only main criticism of it is the same one that was echoed by a lot of people, which is just the price. It was just way too expensive.
Yeah, I didn't mention that for a reason.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. That was unforgivable for me. Or it was just like I did the sealed event. I literally, if it wasn't your birthday, I don't think I would have done sealed for Commander Masters.
Yeah, okay.
That's how pricey it was. Where I was just like, well, I mean, for me, I buy singles, as we know. The number of singles, like I could have brewed and built and bought a new deck for the price of that Commander Masters pre-release.
Yeah, you could have.
And a good Commander deck. I could have brewed. I could have bought the sleeves and the box, and I would have been set. Versus, I pulled like the hoof was worth like $25. I pulled like another card worth $10, and I spent like, what was it? It was like 70 Australian.
I think it was
something.
like $65, $70 Australian.
It was too much.
I found it predatory is the word I'm going to use because they knew Commander players were going to buy the product anyway.
They priced it the amount they knew that people would pay.
And this is the beautiful and disgusting thing about capitalism is as if you're selling product, people will buy it for a certain amount and there is a limit to that amount. You choose where you set it from there.
Yeah.
Like how high can you go? And that's basically what Wizards did is they went as high as they could go.
Yeah.
And they found that kind of sweet spot. And it convinced just enough people to buy the product. If the set was valued at like a Modern Horizons set, for example, I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
Especially because the packs are bigger. You are actually getting more cards. And I do think the value of the cards are better. But like, again, the professor says this all the time. It's cardboard.
Yeah.
It cost them the same to make a standard set in terms of materials as it does a Commander Master set. And yeah, I didn't mention that for a reason. Let me have my fun, man. It was a good set.
It was a good set. I don't want to take that away from you. And I agree the draft was fun. Least favorite sets. I'll go first. This one's easy for me.
I think we have the same, right? Surely.
I think we might. My least favorite is Aftermath.
Yeah, that wasn't a set.
It wasn't a set. So this, for those who don't remember, was the set where they trialed packs with half as many cards. Was it 5 cards in the pack or something silly?
I think it was maybe 7 or 8.
And there were no commons. So it was basically like there would be 3 uncommons in a pack and a rare, and then like a flex slot, I think, that could be a foil or could be a something else. I don't even remember.
The packs felt flimsy. They genuinely felt like a birthday card.
Yeah. Well, and because there were no commons, so there were more uncommons, I think, but there were having no commons cuts down the number of cards substantially.
Yes.
As a result, there were just not very many cards in the set, full stop. And also the value was really low. There was basically the only good pull was the Nissa, this is the Nissa who's now a creature again.
Resurgent Animist.
That sounds right. I think that might be the
one.
It's
like, it's a weird Lotus Cobra effect that also, when it's the second time a land ETBs, you look at the top X cards and find an elemental or something like that.
Yeah.
It's an elf or an elemental or something like that. Yeah.
But it was pricey.
It's seeing a lot of play in standard in some decks, but yeah,
it was just such a non-set to me.
And also, you can't draft it, so what a non-event.
It just, it felt like such a pathetic, like...
Pathetic is a brutal word.
Well, just like an end to that arc, though. Like they've been building up this new Phyrexian invasion, or they had been for many sets. Like Kaldheim had it, Zendikar Rising like had some stuff towards. Like they knew it was coming, and that they gave it the multi-set treatment of doing March of the Machine and what's the one before?
Phyrexia Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, yeah. So they had a few sets of it, but this was supposed to be the the neat bow at the end tied all together, and it just was messy.
I think maybe Spice EDHREC, they said that we got so many sets for a war in Dominaria with the Mirrodin and the Phyrexian arc back then, and that was one city on one plane.
Yeah.
And this story beat was a multi, one of the cards is Breach the Multiverse.
Yeah.
And it's about the tendrils of the tree from Kaldheim breaking through
the World Tree.
The World Tree, thank you. Breaking through the entire multiverse, and we got 1.5 sets for it.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was I would say that March of the Machine and Aftermath collectively are my least favorite.
Okay.
I think Aftermath is definitely the problem. I think March of the Machine had some really good design space. For example, the team-up commanders in March of the Machine.
Love those. I mean, I've spoken at length about Catilda and Leah.
Yeah.
Would not have that deck without that set. So.
And Talia and the Gitrog.
Great card.
Great card. I think there are some really cool design spaces where you can combine 2 legendaries without doing the partner thing. I think there's a really cool play space within that thing. They could have done more of them. I felt like it was... You could have had it span over a couple of sets. You could have been the first set is about maybe Ixalan, the invasion on Ixalan, the invasion on Tarkir, and the invasion on Ikoria, and it's all about monsters and dinosaurs and stuff. And then we have another one where it's the invasion of
Dominaria,
maybe Ravnica, where it's more people and civilization.
Yeah.
And there was such a cool opportunity for a block structure, and I think we actually put block structure as one of our things we want. In an episode a while ago.
Oh, yeah. We wanted to return to at least 2 set blocks, maybe. Yeah. This was definitely a story beat that needed a block, and probably a 3 set block, and not
half a set.
The way that they crammed it all together. Yeah, I agreed. It just didn't work. So, that all in mind, that was all what we thought about the sets of 2023. Yeah. What do we want from 2024 sets?
What do we want for this year? I genuinely think the quality, the actual quality of the product is getting better and better. The quality of the cards, the quality, even the pre-cons that they are producing now, I feel like they're, in 2021 and 2022, they did feel a bit slapdash. They kind of felt like they just crammed some cards in to a commander deck.
They were inconsistent as well. And they some of them were really good, but some of them
3 things.
Yeah. Well, the Brothers War ones were famously fantastic. That was last year. 2022, excuse me. But yeah, like then the next set, then the price would drop down, the quality of the cards would drop down. I was like, what's happened here?
I think Brothers War was the start of the new good quality precons of Commander. And
we saw it with Lord of the Rings and with Lost Caverns of Ixalan. The precons from those sets are really good and really fun.
Yep. I will say Commander Masters fell short a little bit this year. Precons.
Just again price.
Price. I mean, the cards in them were great, but the precons I think were amazing, and I think I would love to see more of those precons just on shelves. And I used to be like, oh, well, they're making so many precons. There's just so much to keep up with now, but. If that brings new players into our format, bring it on. Well, bring it on.
Especially, I actually like it as a way to do the Universes Beyond stuff, to do the precons, because it's a really good way. Like the Warhammer 40k they did a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You know, that there was an obvious way in for... Like, the strategy made sense. You know what I mean? Like, the Universes Beyond Secret Lairs is kind of like, not so sure about this. But when it's a precon, it's like, no, okay, I get it.
Yeah, someone who's like the Doctor Who sets.
Yeah, someone who is in a store, you know, 40k, for instance, someone might be in a store playing Warhammer and go like, what the hell, they've got cards now?
Yeah.
I'm going to grab one of those. And then they can sit down at a Commander night, they can pull it out, they can play a game with it, they can learn the rules of Magic through this avenue of stuff that they know.
Well, shout out to the Dirty D6 Dozen, which is a group of Warhammer players at our local game store.
Yeah.
That I convinced about 5 or 6 of them to come to a Commander night, and they all bought the Warhammer decks.
Yeah.
And they still play them, which is great. And they're not Magic players, but they now understand how to play the Warhammer decks.
Yeah.
The thing that I would like is if they are doing these IP crossovers, make it simpler.
Yeah.
And I think genuinely give the design space less room to be so creative. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, but like, for example, trying to explain the ring tempting you to a brand new player is
a lot.
Insane.
Yeah.
Is just insane. And having the Doctor Who precons have like 10 legendary creatures that all do very different things and have like a paragraph or 2 of text on each card.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
We'll get more into that when we talk about cards as well, but I'm with you, definitely. I think I want to see less products.
Yep, fair enough.
Still, like, they slowed down. I didn't know that they really did slow down. The Secret Layers thing is silly. There's no way the quality of the reprints they're picking is going to be that high when they're doing 50 of them. And also, it's impossible to keep up. Like, I've missed ones. I've looked at ones before after they've happened and gone, that's sick. I maybe would have finally bought one if I'd known this one was out. But it's like, how do you even keep up? It's like a new one every week.
Yeah. I'm really happy that like there are so many people in our LGS that just buy pretty much every Secret Lair. I don't know how they have the money. Yeah. But then I can just be like, can I have that single? Yeah. Like, I just
You've
want
got like
that
a
one.
Phyrexian Sheoldred, I think, from one of these, right? Yeah.
That was the one Secret Lair that I bought, which was the full Phyrexian
Predators. All the Praetor cycle. Yeah.
So I've got a couple left to trade. So if you do want a Phyrexian Predator, let me know.
I don't.
But like, I just think they looked really cool, and one of my mates was buying them. But that's the only one I've ever bought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think price. I would like to see less ridiculous pricing. Aftermath was absolutely silly. They charged basically the same amount for half of a booster pack, and then they, somewhat doubled the number of cards in a pack, and more than doubled the price with Commander Masters. And it's like, this is just greed. I don't like seeing it.
It's predatory.
It's predatory. Yeah. I understand that they want to have premium products. Like, it makes sense. They want to have, booster packs, want to be this entry-level thing that anyone can pick up.
Well, now we've got play boosters.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing. We're
combined set and draft boosters
I guess
together.
we are shifting to less products now, which is kind of nice, actually.
Yeah.
Good Games Australia put a post on their Instagram about how play boosters work. It's a really simple diagram. Go check it out.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I want to see less of is Commander must-haves in every set. I think that there was always like a chase card in every standard set for Commander players. Didn't have any relevance on Standard, any relevance on Mon, any relevance on Pioneer, but it was like, hey, Commander players, this is your reason to buy this product.
Yeah, Moonshaker Cavalry in Wilds of Eldraine, the white Craterhoof Behemoth, give creatures +X/+X and flying till end of turn. Like, it's a win con. If you're playing mono white and you're playing going wide, that's your win con. You need one.
And I think that there's like some like... There are cards that are Commander must-haves like, for example, Roaming Throne.
That card is so silly. It's from Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
So good, though, but it's also good in Limited, and it's also good in Standard right now.
Yeah.
I approve of that card because it wasn't designed like Commander players were going to want this.
Oh, well, like Moonshaker Cavalry is a Commander card.
Yes,
you're not playing that in Limited. You're not playing that in Standard.
If that was my Pack 1 rare, I would pass it.
Yeah. Well, if you're building a good deck.
On Arena. I'd pass it on Arena in paper.
If he wanted the cards and it was in paper, he'd grab it. Yes, I would do the same. Yeah, but pick one white card. Pack 2, reset how you're building your deck. Oh, what a good green card. I guess we're building green now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so speaking of cards, should we go into more specifics? Less sets, more cards.
Okay, let's talk about the cards that came out this year. There were 2017
new cards.
2017.
Damn, that
is
feels
quite
like a lot.
high. Yeah. I guess it makes sense. Like the Doctor Who precons,
were
for instance,
all unique
cards.
I mean, couple of reprints, yeah, like Carpet of Flowers and a few other things.
The number of unique cards in that set was very high. Obviously, then there were all the standard sets, but then I guess the reprint sets don't count. So Commander Masters and Dominaria Remastered, they're not contributing to this.
There were mechanically unique cards in the precons for Commander Masters. So there's a couple.
Actually, every set of precons would have had at least a couple of mechanically unique cards. So that would have been a big factor here. Still, 2000, that's quite a lot. I guess if we're going to look at favorite cards, or maybe just like big cards that came out this year, Clever Concealment. This was a Commander Precon card. This is the one that protects your board. Mondrak, Glory Dominus, doubles your tokens.
Another one.
Another one.
Another one.
Breach the Multiverse. I shouted this out a few episodes ago as ending a lot of games.
I think it's a sick card.
It's great.
I think it's a great
really
top
strong.
end to your mana curve.
Yep.
And if you've got big creatures that you want to cheat out from your own deck, it's a good way to do that and just get extra value from your opponents too.
I do, in terms of them doing the story right, I do like when powerful cards from the set are the key story beats.
Yes, breaching the multiverse is the powerful thing.
And it's awesome art too. It's very sort of immense and
For sure.
Fairy Mastermind.
Oh yeah, I run that in my CEDH deck.
Yep, this is the creature with flash. Whenever a player draws their second card, you draw a card as well.
And you can pay 3 and a blue and each player draws a card.
Yeah.
Which is underused in my opinion. I've activated that a few times and gotten plenty of cards from it.
Yeah, because if someone's already drawn a card, the trick is you make them draw another one, and then that triggers your Fairy Mastermind, you'll draw again.
Correct.
So it's not 4 mana, everyone draws a card. It's 4 mana, you draw 2, everyone else draws 1. Also, sometimes you might draw more than 2.
Yeah, 2 mana flying flash too.
Yeah, it's CDH playable for a reason. Yep. Lotho Corrupted Sheriff.
Another CDH playable card.
Yep. So this is the cast your second spell. Cast the second spell, you make a treasure. Orcish Bowmasters, of course. The One Ring is a big one.
Yeah, that's probably the card of the year.
I'd say so. In terms of the effect on every format,
yes,
it's warped every format it's legal.
Unlike the whole One Ring, that was a story for months.
Oh yeah, big time.
Shout out Post Malone.
Quite a few Lord of the Rings cards here actually. Sting the Glinting Dagger.
Oh yeah,
this card's just great. Yeah, great in any deck where you've got a commander that needs to untap. Last March of the Ents.
I am yet to test this card in any of my decks. I really want to. I think it's awesome.
I couldn't just justify the price for buying a copy myself, but every time I've seen someone else cast it, it goes off.
Yeah.
Very strong card.
Big Timmy play there.
Yeah. Wilds of Eldraine, we had Beseech the Mirror. This is the tutor where you sack something. It goes to the battlefield, basically, if you sack something.
Basically, it gets the One Ring to the battlefield.
Yeah. This is the second ring.
Yeah, this is the ring for 1 black, and sacking a token or an artifact or enchantment.
The One Ring, but another one.
Yeah. Another one.
Another one ring. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. This one's a lot more relevant in other formats than ours, I would say.
I mean, in CEDH, there's a lot of really cool combos around Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Specifically, Walking Ballista just makes that thing go off.
Makes sense. So you basically exile stuff from your graveyard, and then
any creatures with +1 counters on it have the abilities of creatures exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yeah. So basically, you exile any 2 things that would go infinite together, and they go infinite together on the one creature now instead.
Yep.
Wilds of Eldraine, we already spoke about Moonshaker Cavalry. That was probably the biggest draw a card there. I suppose the last two are also Wild Spell Drain.
I will shout out, while we're on that, the Mystical Archive, or the Enchanting Tales, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
The reprints of Rhystic Study, getting more art for Rhystic Study was amazing.
They did Hardened Scales. They
Doubling
did
Season.
Mystic Remora.
Reprints. Shout out those reprints. Very quickly, just wanted to say that.
That had a really significant effect on those prices. I had a few cards that I've been looking at that are sort of around the $8 or $9 mark that became $3 or $4, and that was like justifiable for me. So I picked up a Hardened Scales. I picked up a Copy Enchantment. That got a reprint.
That's a huge card.
I picked up a Sanguine Bond. That got a reprint in that one as well. Really cool art on that one. Very goth. Looks kind of like a Tim Burton film or something. On a Tim Burton, like the Night Before Christmas kind of animation style.
I love that movie.
Yeah, very, very cool.
I just looked up, by the way, the Rhystic Study from Prophecy is now $36.
That's come down.
Have a look at like the Enchanting Tales.
There was a lot of
45. It's come down though.
I'm
happy about
everything's come down that they reprinted there.
I'm not saying Rhystic Study is now an affordable card and can go on every deck, but
But it's good to not have it be out of hand for sure. And then Lost Caverns of Ixalan. There's a few cards people looked at. The big one is Roaming Throne.
Yeah, those cards.
4 mana. If your commander has a triggered ability of any kind, Roaming Throne goes in your deck.
Yep.
If you're playing any kind of typal deck where you care about things triggering, Roaming Throne goes in your deck. There's a reason it started at $8 and is now $22.
It's 22.
It's very strong.
Damn.
Favorite cards of the year. I think I'm not going to go with any of the cards that are on that list.
Sure.
My favorite card of the year is Conduit of Worlds.
Oh, the 4 mana you can play lands from graveyard, and then it's got an activated ability.
Yeah, it's an artifact. Yeah, play lands from graveyard. You can tap it. You can cast a card from your graveyard this turn.
Yeah.
Only as a sorcery, and if you do, you can't cast any other spells this turn.
You run this in your Barbarous Saga deck, don't you?
It's great in Barbarous Saga. I also have it in my Marin deck because you just fill the yard so much of the time. And to look, like, keep in mind what's the card that everyone plays? The Crucible of Worlds.
It's 3 mana.
No, 4 mana. Crucible of Worlds is a 4 generic, isn't it?
No, it's 3.
Is it 3? Okay, well, for one more, admittedly you're in green. You have to lock yourself into green for this. But for one more, you get a card that just says you can play lands from your graveyard and has extra text on it. Like, I think this card's underplayed, and I just think it has really fun lines.
Much better price than Crucible of Worlds as well.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it's like $3 or $4. I think people are sleeping on this card. I think it'll creep up in price soon. I just think in the decks I've played it in, it's just resulted in some really fun lines. I like that it's an artifact as well. Sometimes that becomes relevant. Where, like in Barbarous Saga, you can sack it as an artifact, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my favorite card from the year is also not on our list of influential cards.
Sure.
Just because I love the idea of playing with this card in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Born Upon a Wind from the Lord of the Rings set.
This is basically the new Flash, right? The card Flash.
Not quite, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close, but it's 1 and a blue for an instant that says you may cast spells as if they had Flash this turn and draw a card. Just replaces itself in your hand.
Yeah.
It's not breaking any formats.
No.
But I think this card is just a sneaky include in any blue deck. And like, genuine, I've been thinking about putting 1 copy of Born Upon a Wind in all of my decks that have blue, just to see if it actually is relevant.
Yeah.
Because like, I also think it's a really strong CEDH play. Mm-hmm. There are some really cool lines where you can like exile a bunch of cards with Necropotence, and then on end step, once you get them all, cast Born Upon a Wind and basically get the value from Necropotence immediately.
That's fun.
Pretty sick.
That's really cool.
And also, you can just sneak stuff into play. And I think that, like, there's so many players like me that just love holding up mana on other people's turns. Mm-hmm. If you have this card in your hand, you have infinite possibilities of what you can do on your turn.
Yeah, I mean, it replaces itself. I think it's fun. I'll say that. Yeah. I think it's a fun card, and I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
My least favorite card of the year is the One Ring.
Ooh.
I just think, look, I admittedly am coming at this. I don't see it very much in casual, which I'm glad about. Every time I've seen it in CDH, it just warps the game. If you don't kill the player who has the One Ring, they just win. Admittedly, want to be really clear, I'm coming at this from my stacks perspective. It plays around stacks so well.
Yeah, because you're not casting anything to get it.
Nope.
The only thing that would stop it is really Collector Oof.
Yeah, Collector Oof would do it, and I don't play Collector Oof in my deck because you play a bunch of mana rocks to get at your commander faster. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Look, I just think I hate cards that are just like, okay, we have to deal with you now. And it's 4 generic. It goes in every deck. It's indestructible. It just it time walks all of your opponents because you can't even do anything to them once they've cast it. I just think it's really boring, and I think the format would be better if this card wasn't in it.
Oh, that's a big call. I mean, look, I hear you. It's a warping card. I think that the fact that it does have those burden counters makes the player easier to kill.
Yeah, but they also get a whole turn off.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. I literally have found, I reckon of the times in a CEDH game that someone has resolved the One Ring, I reckon they've won over 80% of the time. And I think that's silly.
Well, I was playing a game... Okay, actually, I'm going to agree with you now because I was playing a game a couple of nights ago, and I had an opening hand with no colored pips of mana producers. I had an Ancient Tomb and a Mana Crypt and One Ring. And I thought that alone is enough of a reason for me to keep, and I was going first.
Yeah. So for reference, this is James's Niv Mizzet Perun deck. Extremely important to have colored pips.
Really important.
But you know you're going to draw that many cards. It doesn't matter.
Well, I was like, I'm going first. If I don't get Force of Willed, I win this game.
Yeah.
And I got Force of Willed. Funnily enough, I did end up coming back and getting very close in that game. Didn't quite win it, but I ended up managing to resolve a dockside later in the game.
Right.
I drew... My only colored pip for 4 turns was Basic Mountain. I'm not kidding. In a blue control deck's not what you want.
Should resolve Blood Moon.
It would have actually gotten more pips.
What was your least favorite card of the year, do you reckon?
Well, look, I got a couple that annoy me, but I'm going to give a bit of a bracket here and just say Talion and Atraxa in the same bracket.
Oh, the new Atraxa,
the ETBs,
one. You basically draw 6 cards or whatever from the top 10.
You get to choose the best.
Silly card.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm putting Talion and Atraxa in this pile is also coming from a bit of a CDH mindset. Keep in mind I'm playing a lot of CDH at the moment.
Yeah.
I just hate commanders that immediately become the objectively right commander to run in any color. In the particular... Like Talion, if you're in Dimir and you just want a Dimir shell... your average Dimir mid-range control list of CDH, Talion.
Right.
The only other option really is Yuriko, and that's a completely different deck.
Oh, yeah. Yuriko is a Yuriko deck, not a Dimir deck.
Correct.
Really.
I just think, and Atraxa is now, the food chain commander.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, there's a reason that Golos got banned, right?
Yes, immediately the right choice to run for a 5-color deck.
Yeah, you can do anything with Golos, and it was fine to do it that way, and it was probably right to choose Golos as your commander. Yeah, I think the format gets worse when there's less variance in commanders people play.
I just think, even in casual, I just hate commanders that just go, hey, if you want a really good commander in these colors... And your deck is just trying to do generally what those colors do. You've not got a Vorthos theme. You've not got, a type that you're working around. Talion.
Yeah. It's just the right choice.
It's also just a bit boring. I also think that Talion as a card is very strong and people don't understand how strong it is.
Yeah.
People are not removing Talion. And oh my God.
It draws so many cards.
It does. It's better than Rhystic Study sometimes.
I mean, it's a Rhystic Study in the command zone.
Yes,
I'll say
basically.
That. Yeah. That's fair. I agree with you. What do we want from cards in 2024? I have one very... More than anything else. Wizards, if you're listening, if you don't do any of these other things, this is my only request.
Yeah.
Put less text on the card. Yeah. I want less text on the cards.
Yeah,
cards are so wordy. There are so many cards these days that I look at, read, and go, that seems like it would be good in my Marin deck. I don't want to play it. There's too many words.
That's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
Well, the meme, sorry that happened. No, glad that happened. No, it's like, sorry that happened, or glad. I don't know, I'm not reading that, bro. Or whatever, the screen grabs.
Look, I agree. The only reason I haven't built a Doctor Who deck yet is because all the Doctors are like a novel in of themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not reading those words.
No, it's just too much. And it makes the game harder for new players, and it just means, cards are increasingly relying on explanations that nobody has.
Yeah.
we don't have it. There's less support for judges. The most played format of Magic is a casual one where judges wouldn't even be there, even if they were available.
Yep.
Let's just have a simpler game. More complex cards are not better cards.
And also, sometimes you just get those cards with like one line of text that's unique enough that it can change the game, but it's very simple to understand.
Yeah, like limitation breeds creativity.
Yes.
Sometimes you can tell someone was like, okay, I want to do a card that makes this thing happen, but I want it to be simple. And they come up with something.
Yeah.
You look at it and you go like, no, that makes sense. Like even, I'm trying to think of the cards we were just talking about, but there's none come to mind of the cards that came out this year that are like simple and
Fairy Mastermind and Lotho. I think these like caring about your second spells being cast. I think that's great.
Breach the Multiverse is perfectly fine. Mill 10, you get a creature
from every graveyard.
From every graveyard. That's pretty straightforward.
But like cards like Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yes,
silly. My God, that's a million words.
Well, even Roaming Throne. Why does it have Ward 2?
Yeah.
Just cut a line of text on that card. It would still be extremely playable without
even Orcish Bowmasters is pretty simple to understand. But like,
I don't know.
If you remove the army, maybe it gets a bit simpler.
Yeah, that would probably do it.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Simpler card design breeds for better gameplay.
Yeah.
I would argue that just like less auto includes in Commander. I think I said that from the sets, like less chase cards.
Yeah.
But less of those specific cards in my opinion.
That would be good. Yeah. I'd also like to see less free spells. There wasn't that many printed this year, but
we did get the reprints of the Commander free spell cycle.
Once they exist, I am of the opinion that they should reprint them as much as possible so everyone has access to the game pieces, but they shouldn't print them in the first place. So, the main one from this year is Clever Concealment. I just don't like free answers. I think they incentivize bad deck building. They make it so that people just go like, okay, if I draw enough cards and have my win cons on board, I can just have my free spell.
Also, it makes the EDHREC pages look boring.
Yeah.
You click on any Dimir deck and it's got 3 cards always at the top. It's like, I don't want to play those.
Where are the other 90? Like, I want 96 interesting cards, 99 interesting cards, not 96. Less free spells.
Yeah. I want more interesting commanders. Like I said with those team-up commanders in March of the Machine, I think that's a really cool way of like making cards do like multiple things.
Yeah.
And like I don't mind if the commanders have a bit of text on them, but like for example, Catilda and Lear is blending Catilda as a character and Lear as a character in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
Caring about spells and humans. Like when you cast a human, target spell gains flashback. That's just intuitive because those 2 cards work together like that. Like it's just I want to see more of that. If anything, I would love another team up, a reason for creatures on planes to team up. I think that would be awesome.
I think they did mostly we've asked for things this year that they didn't do well last year. I think they already did do interesting legends really well. I just want to see them do it again.
More of them for sure.
I agree. Yeah, that's most of what I want, I think.
One more thing.
Yeah?
I want cards that solve problems and not create problems. That's a very bit vague request, but...
No, I think I get what you mean.
Like the One Ring, for example.
Yeah.
That creates a problem.
Yeah.
Where's the removal spell that was printed alongside it that gets the One Ring off the board? I just think maybe this year is the year of removal and 2023 was the year of problems.
Yeah.
And now this year is our year of finding the removal.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Last year they printed so many treasure hate cards. They didn't necessarily explicitly say that, but they were. I'm thinking specifically of the human Dauntless something. The human they printed in Lost Caverns of Ixalan that makes artifacts your opponent's control into the battlefield tapped.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And you can pay X, X, and white and destroy each artifact with mana value X.
Oh yeah, it's like the ape shaman. It's got
he's a human.
Yeah, but it's a very similar ability from a very common sideboard card.
Oh,
in Pauper.
The ape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shaman.
Gorilla shaman.
Gorilla shaman.
Gorilla
that's
shaman.
It.
Yeah, it's
same
similar...
activated ability. You can just pop.
Yeah.
Everything for 0 CMC really quickly.
That's a targeted one, whereas Dauntless is each artifact.
Oh,
wow.
So
the reason I call it a treasure hate card is you can pay X equals 0, X equals 0, white
and
destroy every artifact with mana value 0.
And clues, food.
Every clue, every treasure, every
I
food.
want more of that. I want more of that.
Yeah.
I want more cards that answer the problems, and I get it. The cards that create the problems are exciting because you want to be the problem.
Yeah.
But cards that resolve them make you feel like the 10th Doctor being very clever and being like, aha, my sonic screwdriver just fucked your entire game plan.
Shout out cards at the crux. I looked at the data a lot in terms of the cards that are warping games, and the removal mattered, but it was usually not enough relative to the bombs that were being played. So I agree with you. I hope they print more answers, fewer bombs.
Speaking of that, I'm starting my game log, by the way.
Ooh.
We're going to do a whole year of James's games.
Nice.
See if the Space Commanders want that data.
Yeah.
If not, I'm doing it for no reason.
That's about all we have for the first half, I reckon. So we've got lots to talk about, including our favorite decks and episodes of this podcast, I reckon. But we should take a thrifty interlude.
It's a short little break. Kind of like the break you get when you work full-time, and it's that great little period between Christmas and New Year. Not the kind of size when you get when you're in high school, where you get like 6 weeks off between that time, but just a little one. Like you're an adult and you have to actually go back to doing hard work later.
Yeah. A very short, good catchphrase there, James. That'll help with our marketing of the thrifty interlude for sure. Marketing major, James, over here. No,
30 grand well spent.
Yeah. We've got lots to talk about, but before that, we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card. And as is tradition, I will be performing a monologue, and this week it's the Cowled Merchant with some new wares.
He's back.
Would you like to read the card I'm featuring this week, James?
I sure would, because I just think this is an auto-include in a lot of decks.
Yeah.
It's Demolition Field. It's a land, and it taps for a colorless, but it also has the activated ability to pay 2, tap, and sacrifice Demolition Field, and destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. That land's controller may search their library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then you can do the same.
Ever wanted to blow stuff up, but not the things you care about? Got some old junk you don't need anymore, but desperate for some action in your life? Come along to the Field of Explosion! Old couch? Boom! Worried-looking portrait of a maid? Bang! Harmless jar of black oil? Splat! Stick of dynamite? Take that somewhere else, please. That's just silly. It's the most entertaining sanctioned violence since the invention of sport in 16543 BCE. There was sport played before then. I saw it. But gosh, without a central governing body, people got really hurt. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Get budgeted.
You know, the thing he's selling almost reminds me of a break room. Have you ever heard of break rooms?
Oh, yeah.
I love break rooms.
You went to one recently, I remember.
took my partner for their birthday party.
You just break stuff, right?
You literally get handed a baseball bat and like old cups and plates, and you can purchase a computer monitor as well, just to like beat an old computer monitor to death.
Nice.
I also realized this card, I misread it.
Yeah.
The land that they get do not come into the battlefield tapped.
No, your one and the one that other people get comes in untapped.
So you actually will end up with an untapped mana after using this, and that's why I think this card is like another reason to make this an auto-include in a lot of decks.
I think this is the best version of this effect in colorless.
Yes, it goes in any deck.
Yeah. And admittedly, that is not Wasteland or
Strip Mine,
which are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
If you want to see those as they come out every Thursday in the Thrifty Thursdays channel of the Greensboro Commander Community's Discord server. So you can check that out in the show notes. That's also where we chat and hang out with a lot of other people.
Speaking of chatting, we've been doing it for like nearly an hour.
Yeah, it's going to be a beefy one. Thanks for sticking with us. We got some more fun stuff ahead of us, though. I want to talk about the decks we built this last year.
Yeah, well, we actually have we play the game, not just look and buy the product. We actually use these cards that we spend ridiculous amounts of money on to play the game.
We do, in fact, play the game. It's crazy. So I built 5 decks last year, 2023. I built my Mowu Loyal Companion deck. That was really early in the year. That was like January. I built Catilda and Leah. I bought EDHREC the Masked, Thursday Incarnate, famously my custom commander deck.
That was built that was in
last
2023,
year. And Barbala Saga was the last one I built. So I built 5 decks last year.
Damn. Good haul. Well done.
They were all great.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy playing every single one of these decks. I think I'm finally finding my way of building decks where they're not all in on the commander. Shout out Glass Cannon episode. They're not all in on the commander, but the commander is integral, but the decks kind of work on their own. And all of these decks have done that for me, and they've just been so much more fun as a result.
Yeah, smashed it.
Yeah, I think my favorite of the year deck that I built, by the way, sorry, those are all the decks I built that still exist.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times I built a Moxfield draft of a deck and it never saw the light of day.
Yeah, I've done a few of those this year and it's just not done anything.
Once you play tested on the Moxfield playtest feature and you're like, this sucks. I don't know why I did this.
Don't even need an opponent to tell me this is terrible.
I know for a fact it is. My favorite deck I built this year is the one I did Command 0 for. It's Catilda and Lear.
Yeah, this deck is without a shadow of a doubt the first one you're like, I feel like a Catilda and Lear game. Does anyone have that kind of power level?
It's just so fun. It's just like, it's bad, but it's like fun. It just like does stuff. It makes game actions. You can do, there's like really cool lines. I love the fact that you've said multiple times that it's the deck you enjoy losing with. And I think if there's a goal for any deck builder out there, build a deck you enjoy losing with. Yeah. Oh my God, what a win. Yeah. I think like if I can give practical advice for any deck, build a deck with a low mana curve that makes interesting game actions early, which is usually as a result of having a low mana curve. Yes. But those tend to be the decks that are fun to lose with, because even when you lose, you've already done a bunch of stuff. Like, it's the decks that require a bunch of ramp and a bunch of setup before they do anything, where, if you lose a game early, like you're knocked out first in a game, you'd be like, cool, I ramped.
Yeah.
Like, that's my game.
I did nothing but cast like 4 versions of Cultivate.
Yep, and that was my whole game. And admittedly, like, ramp decks probably are good for this in that you have more mana sooner, so you get to make more game actions.
And the bigger plays happen on turn 5. Yeah.
So maybe it's more an argument for having a cheap commander. I think it's fun to have a commander that comes out early because you tend to do the deck's thing earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I've got a couple of decks. What was your least favorite?
So... I hated this deck so much, I'm actually time warping it, and admittedly only a week. It ceased to exist on, I think, the 22nd of December, 2022.
Oh, okay.
Look, it was relevant enough. This is the deck that became my Moru Loyal Companion deck. It's Sasaya Orochi's Voice. This is from the original Kamigawa set. It's the 3-mana creature. You reveal your hand. If you have 7 lands in hand, you flip it. And when I say flip it, I mean...
rotate it.
180 degrees into an enchantment that says when you tap a land for mana, you basically get as much mana as the number of lands with the same name. So if you have a bunch of forests, when you tap a forest for mana, if you have 7 forests, it makes 7 green. Very cool looking card, and it was cool to brew. Awful deck to pilot.
Yeah, you did a lot of sandbagging.
You just sit there. You just sit there putting lands in your hand for half the game, and then if you're lucky, you get 7 lands and you reveal it. And if you do, though, someone just like, removes the Sire. And it's like, great. Pass the turn. And then like when you actually do flip it, you tend to win. You just like spend all your mana in a million different ways. But there's no middle ground. Like this is the quintessential Glass Cannon deck. Either you go all in, you do this amazing, fantastical thing, or you do actual nothing. I reckon
the Space Commanders saw you play this deck and was like, there's a command in this. I reckon let's force Walt to think about his actions.
Learn your lesson, Walt. Yeah, straight up. That's me. Which decks did you build this last year?
Well, I only built 3 decks this year, but I overhauled 2. And and because I'm an architect, not a tinkerer, when I overhaul something, I overhaul it. Like I change like 20, 30, maybe even 50 cards in the deck.
It's pretty much a new deck.
Yeah, and it really changes the direction of how the deck works and functions. Commander stays the same, everything else changes. The 3 new decks were the Scorpion God, Savine the Chronoclasm, and Tornos Urza's Apprentice. I technically built that at the end of 2022, but it
was built for the same event as Sasaya Orochi's Voice, actually.
Mine lasted and like got edited because I built it for an event, and then once that event was over in 2022, I rebuilt it and did like an overhaul pretty much immediately.
The event had a price restriction for those who don't know.
Yes.
So yeah, you've since put good expensive cards in there, which is fair enough.
And it works now. And the 2 decks that I overhauled were Liesa, Shroud of Dusk, and Phylaf World Sculptor.
Nice.
Which I realize appeared a lot in your the game log because I overhauled it and it was a new deck and I played it a lot.
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, Phylaf, Savine, and Tornos, I think, were 3 of the most common decks that I saw in my game log when I played against you.
This year, for sure. I think out of the new decks that I've built this year, I think Savine was such an awesome thing for me to build because it's like I have always been known as the Spellslinger type player, but I've not had a Spellslingery storm off kind of do the thing a million times deck for a while.
Since Niv Mizzet became CDH, in casual games, you haven't really had like an explicitly Spellslinger deck. I guess your closest is probably your Yeleva deck.
Yes.
But that's more like a big spells kind of deck.
It's still Spellslingery, but it's definitely a... I overhauled that this year as well.
Oh, okay.
I left that off the list. I did change a lot of those cards.
Yeah.
Granted, since I changed it, I don't think I play it as much anymore just because I think it's too refined and it's doing a thing too well now.
Yeah.
Might be a deck that I look at either doing another overhaul on or cutting entirely. But I think the Savine deck for me was such a go back to my roots because I actually bought the Savine, the Chronoclasm Precon when it came out. And I loved that deck heaps. I actually played Alesha of the Infinite as the phase commander for a while. Elsha, that's it. And I loved it. And I love this whole kind of like copy spells, do multiple things. Because I love it when I get to put the spell on the table, like the card, and then I get to put an Infini token on top of it to represent the copy. I just feel cool. I'm creating spells out of nothing. But
it's very you. It's very how you play Commander.
Yeah. But my favorite deck is Tornos, for sure. The one I did my Command Zero on as well. Tornos is just quintessential James leaving up a ton of mana and having 30 different decision tree options, and whatever happens on my opponent's turn dictates my answer and like how I respond. It's also just a bit of a Timmy deck where it's like I can justify playing really splashy things. Like I've got a Mere Battlesphere in there. I've got like those kinds of big splashy plays.
If they have like a huge ability of some kind, having the ability to copy it means it's worth it. Like, you know, the Mere Battlesphere thing of tapping, you know, or your untapped Mere and dealing a bunch of damage, when that happens twice,
it's doming you for a ton.
It's like, you know, take 10 and then block this 15-4 or whatever it is. Yeah, I
think Tornos was such a fun deck to build and to pilot, and I also would argue that it's the deck I have most fun with losing, because usually I'll have done something really weird that I've never seen the deck do before, and that's enough for me.
Or a bunch of weird stuff. Usually it's like...
Untap this, do this.
I turned Myriad Landscape into an artifact, and then I did this.
That's not weird anymore. I try it. I have the objective every game to try and either copy Myriad Landscape's ability by turning it into an artifact, or doing it with Wayfarer's Bauble. Yeah. Because ramping lands in Izzet.
I know.
Oh my god.
The deck does it remarkably well, because you have the Wayfarer's Bauble, you have Myriad Landscape, you have what's the 3-mana Burnished Heart does it. You also have Solemn, I think.
I do have Solemn Simulacrum.
So there's weirdly a pretty substantial amount of the time when it's like, oh, James is the Izzet deck and an artifact Izzet deck. I'm sure he just has like 5 lands, and it's like, what? How'd you get 16 lands?
I do love it when I can like copy, you know, Burnished Heart 3 times.
Yeah.
By like untapping Tornos, and then it's just like, all right, I get every basic lands from my deck.
So goofy.
Yeah, it was a fun deck.
I like playing against it.
In terms of my least favorite, I really struggled with this. I genuinely don't think I had any flops this year in terms of decks that I built.
In terms of new decks.
In terms of new decks,
yeah.
I think that I'm really looking forward to when the Space Commanders get around to making me do all my decks like they did you.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to look at a lot of decks that I'm cutting from my collection, and why is the big reason. And I think that they'll be like the least favorite deck. So I guess just tune in for that episode to hear what I hated at playing about in my own collection.
No, but I think it's interesting that you showed more restraint with the decks that you built this year, and subsequently were probably slightly more happy. Although, that said, the 5 that I built, that I mentioned...
That you kept.
I do enjoy all of those decks.
They're your favorite decks. I also just think that the speed in which I did build decks. I used to build a lot more decks.
Me too.
And I think that I've slowed down a lot in the past. Like 2023 was probably my lowest deck building year since I started. And I think it has meant that my piloting of the decks that I currently own is better.
Yeah.
And the decks that I build are more what I want to play than just something I slapped together because a commander came out in a set. I thought it was cool and put it together. Do you know what I mean?
There's a high threshold that I think both of us are clearing before we go pull the trigger on building a deck.
And buying the singles and putting it together.
Where we have to be really like, oh, this card looks cool and I have these cards set aside for it and I kind of feel like a deck like that and I just disassembled this deck. Like there's more steps before we're like, okay, I'll build that.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I agree, we were like, I mean, we were in lockdown. Like in 2020,
we had
2021.
nothing else to do but build commander decks.
And we were going all in together on singles orders. Like it was just the thing to do. So it made sense. But yeah, that's fair.
Maybe we move back in together and just lock ourselves down for 2 months and see what happens. Like,
for content. We'll do it for content.
Content purposes. Let's retire from our jobs early and just build commander.
The dream.
Subscribe to our Patreon to support that happening.
Subscribe to the Patreon and we will voluntarily go into lockdown. Patreon can be prison, actually.
You can just pay to shut Walt and I up for a couple of months.
We can't. That's not on the Patreon page. We're not offering it to you. Okay, we talked about the decks we made in 2023. What do we want in our decks in 2024? Our new decks.
Yeah. What do you want?
I mean, I've said this before when we did what we want from Wizards recently, but I am still looking for a good commander for my Spirit deck. I think Spirits are fun. I want to build a Spirit deck. I'm yet to find the perfect commander for it. And especially, I think I said, maybe even in that episode, that I was going to finally rebuild my Goblin deck.
Oh, yeah, with Grenzo.
With Grenzo at the helm.
You had a cracker, didn't you?
I built a draft. It sucks, and it's awful to pilot, so I'm still looking for a good Goblin commander. I may end up finding one in the history of commanders that have come out. I actually think I may end up doing Shadowgang Brothers, possibly.
Oh, yeah, Jund.
But it's not very interesting as the commander of a Goblin deck.
It's a toolbox. You can do, it does what goblins want to do. You can sacrifice goblins to Shadowgang to do stuff.
It's true, but the other two lines of text will be pretty irrelevant. The sacking artifacts, sacking... Anyway, look, it get me the colors, which would be cool, but I'm still kind of on the lookout. If they print like a cool new, especially Rakdos, I think, cool new Rakdos Goblin commander, I'll probably just build that instead.
You might get lucky in the murders at Karlov Manor because it's on Ravnica. We know goblins are pretty common on Ravnica. Shadowgang Brothers are from Ravnica. The Krenko is Ravnican.
Ooh.
So there are a couple of goblins on Ravnica that have been very interesting in the past. Maybe we'll get some goblins.
A new Krenko would be cool. It would also be cool. I'm pretty sure Squee is in that.
Isn't
true. Squee on Ravnica for Males of Karlov Manor? If they do a Rakdos Squee, I may just build that.
Probably, yeah. That would be cool. Sick. I will say that by the time this episode comes out, we might already be getting spoilers. So maybe we're predicting the future right now.
You're listening to this and you're going, oh my God, Walt, you're not going to believe this. And you'll message me and I'll be like, I know.
Messages on Discord. Messages on Discord.
No, tell me. If you see, if you just know of a cool goblin commander that is slept on, let me know. I know of all the main ones and I'm not building those for a reason, but especially Rakdos. If you think of a cool Rakdos goblin commander, let me know.
Yeah.
I also really want to build a mono white deck.
Ooh.
So that's kind of probably I'll be looking at different legends for that. I've got a few in mind already. I was looking at the Gandalf maybe. But I think I really enjoyed building my Mowu deck, mono green. And I think the next color I'd really like to do is definitely mono white.
Gandalf would be sick.
Gandalf would be cool. It's just like...
It does put you on a bit of a path as well.
Well, but it's interesting because the deck I'm playing the least at the moment is my Selesnya Artifacts deck, Golems deck. So I could turn that into a mono white with Gandalf at the helm. Could be cool.
As long as Glunch gets a home somewhere.
Well, Glunch is in the Thursday Incarnate deck.
Oh, it is too.
So
okay, good,
he's safe. He's safe.
Right,
it's always lunchtime somewhere.
It's lunchtime somewhere.
What do you want from your decks in 2024?
Well, I actually have a deck that I'm halfway through brewing at the moment. It's been on the back burner for a while, but I'm brewing Kellen the Fey-Blooded.
You have told me about this, and I actually have... my Outlaw's Merriment aside for you.
Yes, I need that.
You needed that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give it to you after this episode.
Yeah, it's basically like a Sunforger deck because Kellen has an adventure on him that tutors for an equipment or enchantment aura. So you basically always go get Sunforger, and I love a Sunforger deck.
So fun.
I've never had a Boros deck before, but I think a Sunforger deck is so me.
It's the way to do it.
It's so me, like instant, having every answer possible. But it's also going to be a token aggro deck because each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each equipment and aura on Kellen.
Yeah, so you make Kellen really big, which makes your whole army really big. Yeah. So you want a bunch of equipment with the Sunforger style thing, but you also want a bunch of token makers to go wide. Yeah. It's a cool deck. I'm glad you're building it.
Yeah, I've honestly, I'm pretty there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've probably got 150 cards in the Moxfield list or something like that. So
it's on the way.
It's on the way. It needs synergizing a little bit because I've got a couple. It's hard to choose how far down the Sunforger route I want to go and how much token generation. The great thing about Boros is there's just a million token generators, which is the greatest thing.
You know what you could do?
Finding the line.
You could, because Sunforger chooses red and white instants with mana value 4 or less. You can make all your token makers 4 or less instants.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of
I've got Krenko's Command and stuff like that. Yeah, I've got all of those in the list. Right. It's just if Sunforger goes and someone deals with Sunforger, how well does the deck work without
the other win con? Yeah, okay, that's fair.
The other thing that I want to build in 2024 is 5-color.
Have you never built a 5-color deck?
I've piloted 5-color decks in the past. I've piloted a couple of Kenrith decks and stuff, but I've never built one.
Yeah.
And I've got a few contenders. And I might even put, I don't know, maybe I'll put a poll on our Instagram or something, and I'll say
they can decide. Yeah.
Who do I build? I've got 2 Tazries.
Two
Tazries. I've got General Tazri, which
the
is
allies one.
Yeah, the ally typal build.
Yeah.
And then there's also Tazri Soulwart Survivor, and this is the one that cares about creatures with activated abilities.
Oh.
It's a wild card, and I've been interested in it for ages because I feel like it'll be very like Tornos, where I'll just leave up a bunch of responses and choose the right one at the right time.
Yeah.
It basically allows your creatures with activated abilities tapped for a mana of any color, but you can only use them to activate abilities of creatures with activated abilities.
I remember, is this like a Dominaria United card or something? Maybe?
Oh, no, I think it's an old one. I think it's actually like an old Zendikar Tazri.
Oh, okay. I've seen this card before.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
It's whack. I'm also thinking Morophon using avatars as the creature type that I go down.
Interesting.
Then I can run the Niv Mizzet avatars that Niv Mizzet has. Pretty cool.
Yeah, because Niv Mizzet...
Supreme is an avatar. Reborn is an avatar.
Yeah.
But also there's a bunch of... There's the cycle of Domini.
Oh, Dominus of Fealty. and
those
Dominus
ones.
So
they basically all become 3 mana, which is really cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. A couple of things that I want to build. Maybe I'll put a poll up when this episode comes out and go on our Instagram, get commanded, and there'll be a poll. You can choose what deck I build this year.
Oh, sounds good.
But I have said this before. I'm cutting decks.
Yeah.
I'm cutting down. I've got a bunch of decks that are sitting on shelves that have great cards in them that I could be trading to people for better cards. And I want to streamline my collection a little bit. That's what I want from my decks, for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. I reckon that's all we want to say about favorite decks. I want to talk about what our favorite episodes of Get Commanded have been, our favorite transmissions.
Yeah.
So we have released in the year of 2023, episodes 19 to 69 were released. Nice. In 2023. So that's 51 of our, at the time of this episode coming out, 70 episodes.
Wow, we're 70?
We're at 70, and 51 of them came out last year. So the only week that we didn't have an episode come out was the last week of December.
Christmas, basically. Christmas
No
week.
one's listening at podcasts. We know you're all busy. But 51 episodes came out.
Wow.
So most of the episodes are on offer here in terms of which we liked.
Yeah. Bit of a review of what all the content we've made together.
Yeah.
What's your favorites? What are your favorites?
So I think the episodes that have stood out the most to me, the really cool thing about the commands that we get from the Space Commanders is that we interpret them and we hope that our interpreting of them helps you. But in the process, we actually have to process the advice for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that the best ones are the ones that make us think about our play.
100%.
Yeah.
So the episodes that stood out the most to me were the ones that have changed the way I do stuff.
So selfish of us. The best ones that we like are the ones that we like.
Yeah. But basically. So Experiment the Great Freeze. This is the origin of the Architects and Tinkerers divide, which then two articles on Commander's Herald and 2 other episodes, including a space battle.
Yep.
Talked about this concept. That was, it's a new way of thinking about decks that I didn't have before.
It got a lot of just like the Reddit posts that you put up got lots of comments.
People really were interested in the ideas. Not everyone agreed with them.
Yeah.
But people really had stuff to say about it, which I like.
You're personifying something that hasn't been personified before as the types of deck builders.
Not that I'm aware of.
We've the Magic community has personified players and the way you pilot decks.
Spikes and Jennies and Jimmies and
but not so much the builders of the decks.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I've thoroughly enjoyed your articles and I really enjoyed the debate. I still think that I unrightfully lost the episode of the space battle where we did Architects versus Tinkerers. But c'est la vie.
It was a tough sell. Another episode I really liked was the glass cannon. This has come up 3 times in this episode alone.
True, yeah.
We just use the term glass cannon these days. We used it before then as well. But it was really narrowed down for us. Okay, this is what a glass cannon commander looks like. Mm-hmm. I basically stopped building awful decks that I didn't like because I stopped building glass cannons. So that was a big one. Tutors versus card draw.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. So as a result of that episode, I cut tutors from most of my decks. Most of my decks have no tutors in them, and then some of them have 2 or 3, but that's because they're weird.
Yeah, it definitely increases the I wonder what could happen. What will I draw?
Yeah.
The fun of the game. Whereas if I have a tutor, I know I'm getting the card that's going to get me the win. Game's over. Let's rerun it.
Yeah.
I feel when you've got this kind of what will happen in a game of Commander, it increases the fun. And remember, that's what we're playing Commander for, is the fun of it.
Yeah.
And I think that episode was very in line with what Commander is.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that I think is interesting is 2 of the decks I built this year have no tutors in them, but are toolbox commanders. Catilda and Lear and Barbala Saga are very weird little synergies between things.
Gives you card advantages in different ways.
Yeah. And I think having no tutors made me lean towards commanders that gave me lots of options.
Yeah.
Because also the options are different every episode, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, every game, not every episode. Anyway, yes. Tutors versus card draw. It was a good thing to cut tutors from my decks. I liked it a lot. And then I did want to mention one that you steered a lot, which is the Color Philosophy series.
Oh, thanks.
I very much enjoyed speaking about it on the pod with you. And then I ended up doing a bunch of listening to Mark Rosewater talk about color pairs on his podcast,
I'm
Drive
really
to Work.
glad because I've listened to all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you're now convinced to go down that route and explore what color philosophy is all about.
It's just the lens for viewing the game. Once you're aware of color and how it works, everything in the game you see through the lens of color, and it's so interesting.
Always boils down to it.
Yeah. Pie Break, obviously, with Dan Sheehan's new podcast, that he talks specifically about the color identity of things that are not Commander. Recent episode came out where he had Rachel Weeks back on. They
did dogs, didn't they?
They did dog breeds. It was a lot of fun.
There was a couple that I was like, oh yeah, that dog is more blue than any other color. I'm like, that's so weird to think about.
Thinking about a blue dog is a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's not something you normally come to mind.
I thought it was great. I thought they didn't talk about my favorite breed of dog, which is a pug. They did talk about a French bulldog though, which similar-ish.
Yeah, similar disposition, I think, between the two.
What do you reckon a pug's color identity? When we lived together, I had a pug.
They're not green.
They're red. They are 100% red. They're very instinctive.
All impulse. They're not selfish.
They're not mono red, though. I feel like they're maybe...
They might be mono red. They're pretty chaotic.
But they're so loyal is the other thing. I reckon they're red with maybe a white activated ability in their card.
The thing that they said that was interesting is they were immediately we have to be careful about using white because all dogs are loyal.
Yes, all dogs are white.
So it's
to a certain
really,
extent.
Probably almost all dogs are red-white.
Maybe pugs are just mono red.
Maybe. But they're so manufactured. Maybe they're blue-red.
Is it dog?
They're an is it dog.
I love that.
That works for you.
There's a reason why I love them so much then.
Anyway, if you enjoyed that speculation, Pie Break is basically all that. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half of that.
Yeah, but shout out your Color Philosophy series. I dived into color last year as a result of that. So
I'm glad. I always wonder because I definitely steer that episode series with the Space Commanders, but I always was curious because you're the creative writer, performer.
Yeah.
It just feels like something you'd have a lot of fun with.
I don't understand myself. Because it does. I'm with you.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
You are an enigma wrapped in a puzzle.
Your favorite episodes of 2023?
Look, a recent one that just came out like a few episodes ago now. Cards at the Crux.
Oh, yeah.
This was the piece of data that you kept separate from your game log, which were the turning points of the games, like kind of separated the games into what you referred to as acts.
Yeah.
Like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I found it changed how I looked at the game. Like, there are, someone's in the lead at the start. That doesn't always mean they're going to win the game. What's the card that's going to be the turning point?
Yeah, what card brings down the leader?
Yeah, and I'm now finding when someone is casting a board wipe, I'm like, oh, end of Act 1, people. Short intermission. Let's go to the bar, grab some Maltesers, and we'll be back for Act 2.
Yeah, 100%.
I find it really interesting that it was like, it was either like attempt for a win, a board wipe. There was like those categories. Don't want to spoil the episode. Go listen to it. But I found it really interesting.
It does change the way you look at a Commander game, where it's funny, then since that episode's come out, so the people who were aware that I was keeping this data because I was asking them about it at the end of games, but now that the episode's out, people are aware of what I was tracking and what I was looking at, and now I get to the end of a game before I've even pulled out the log. Some of our most devoted listeners who we play with will say like, "Oh, the turning point was this card, right? Well,
this card.
Don't you think it was
definitely
that one?
This card?"
So I think it's interesting that once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, well, we had a game night the other night where it was like a long discussion afterwards of like what the turning point was.
We're all seeing it in the same way. Yeah. I'm really glad that that transmission came across that way.
I think that's the thing that I love about this podcast. It's allowed us and our listeners to view the game through different lenses. And I think the ability, even our podcast just giving the correct language to our listeners, and even the language to us where we can explain what we're thinking about these topics on the pod, but also with our friends, with listeners. It's great.
Definitely.
Also loved the Tilted episode.
Oh, when we get tilted,
Yeah, I think that's a very Get Commanded origin story. This whole podcast started because we wanted to assist a local community group in becoming better Commander players and in navigating the murky waters of Commander being a social format. I think When We Get Tilted was a great one.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think for me, I love the really rules intensive episodes that I've written for the Space Commanders. Like reading the card won't explain the card, priority the stack and you.
Yeah, you did a couple of deep dives into the rules when you got the transmissions well in advance and you were like, okay, I'm going to read everything there is to know about this.
Well, I mean, it started my journey to judgehood.
Yeah.
And I'm still properly, spending time doing the tests online on Judge Academy, even though it doesn't exist anymore, but still working really hard and assisting where I can. And hopefully in 2024, there'll be a new judge system with Wizards. Maybe it's already come out by the time this episode's released. I don't know, maybe.
Message us again. Yeah. Let us know about the things we don't know because we're in the past.
Yeah. But yes, I loved that one.
Yeah, they were fun deep dives. I learned, even looking at the layer system, that was really interesting.
The layers were really interesting.
Changed again. I've read about it before, and then looking at it again, I picked up even more, and it's again been like, okay, that's right. There's a sort of order to this, and you need to know it. Yeah.
Power Toughness, Layer 7. Whoa, what a weird one.
Oh, it's strange.
And I do think that Out of the Box and Upgraded was one of the episodes I'm most proud of because I think it's a great... This episode is something we can point anyone to if they are a new player that's just bought a precon. Doesn't matter what precon it is. It's the difference between giving a man a fish and teaching a man how to fish.
Yeah.
There are a million episodes out there on YouTube and in other podcasts of upgrading this specific precon. But
those videos are really good. If you have that precon, that will be good. But I agree with you. I'm glad that the information that we've put out there is okay, you have a precon. How would you go about upgrading it? And it's a pretty robust process there. Yeah, I like that episode.
It's a good episode for listeners of a long time to pass on to new players that they want to get into Commander.
Definitely. Well, that was 2023. What are we hoping the Space Commanders will throw us for 2024? I mean, we hope you're listening, Space Commanders.
Yeah, this is specifically for you.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed the different experiments we've done. I spoke about the Great Freeze, but also did the 50 game log was an experiment. I like the sort of data oriented stuff, and it seems like people are interested in that as well. So I'm happy to do more of those.
It's becoming a bit of a series in and of itself. These experiments,
experiment : whatever it is.
I really would like to see like maybe it's connected to our stream, maybe. I want to do an episode where we analyze a game, like one game, and we just deep dive into all the decision trees. Basically, Marvel's What If, but for a game of Commander. Game. Yeah, I think maybe the best way to do it might be through a stream.
Yeah, maybe, or YouTube even. Could be good. Maybe stream and then on YouTube.
Maybe YouTube content, we like commentate over the top. Yeah. Something like that.
I think that would be very well suited to CDH specifically. Yes. There's so many lines and like objectively right things to do in CDH.
Well, I mean, hopefully, I don't want to spoil too much, but there are some Australian CDH competitions that Walt and I are potentially getting involved with, which is exciting.
We'll let you know.
But I would also like to do more CDH content in general.
Yeah.
I think CDH is a realm that casual Commander players are becoming more fascinated with. I think there is like and we did paperweights just recently, like the kind of like building up your skill as a Commander player. And let's be real, CDH is like stepping into a UFC cage. Like it's
the next level.
It's the next level. And I think that more CDH content from us is not saying that CDH is the best way to play Commander, because we're a casual Commander podcast. We love our casual games. But I think the world of CDH is growing. And I think we have a lot to say on it. So if Space Commanders want us to talk about it, we've got a lot to say.
Well, and also tell the Space Commanders you want to hear about it, by the way. If you out there are like, yes, more CDH, tell the Space Commanders. Via social media.
They monitor us.
We'll pass it on.
They monitor our DMs, so if you DM us, they see it. I can't have a private conversation anymore.
If we left you on red, it wasn't us, it was the Space Commanders. I want to see I don't know if the Space Commanders will allow this. I want to see a silly topic. I want to see like a
silly topic,
like a space battle over something like more stupid than already.
If split second battle is a good mechanic.
Like space battle. No, like even more silly. Like space battle. Which person in lore has the largest brain in mass?
It's surely got to be like one of the Elder Dragons, right?
Maybe, but then there's like Marit Lage. Like how much of that skull is
how big is
brain?
Child of Alara?
Yeah.
That's true.
And how big is a child's brain? Do they have the largest theoretical size of potential brain?
I see what you're saying.
Anyway,
I like it.
I think it could be fun to be silly.
Maybe we'll do that as an April Fool's episode.
Maybe. Let us know, Space Commanders, if that seems good. But yeah, that's been 2023. It was a massive year for Magic, with some fantastic new crossovers via Universes Beyond and some generally pretty high quality sets and precons. We also brought you an episode every single week last year. It's been a huge responsibility, but it's been our absolute pleasure, and we couldn't have done it without you, so thanks.
Yeah, but all that was last year. 2024 is going to be even bigger. More cards, commanders, in-person events, streams, memes, and discounts on sleeves from Palms Off Gaming, of course, and content from us. We really hope you are going to join us for this pretty insane adventure we've found ourselves on. And like Walt just said, this can't happen without you guys that listen and support us. So thank you.
So, Space Commanders, command received.
Wow.
Nice.
What a year.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this year, though, man. Like, seriously, we are on the precipice of a very big year for content creation and us. We're going to CanCon. We're doing stuff. We got Pog on our side.
Definitely.
Good Games Australia is working with it. Oh, it's a big year.
Big things are going to happen. So, to listeners out there, do you feel commanded? I want to know what your favorite episode of Get Commanded was in 2023, and consequently, what you want from us in 2024.
Yeah, again, we want to hear it from you guys because you guys are the ones that listen, so we'll make it for you.
Definitely.
Look, you can get in touch with us on all the platforms, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Threads, @GetCommanded on all of them. You can follow us on Twitch, @GetCommanded, which we will try and be posting some kind of a schedule as soon as we can of some description to join us streaming. We've really enjoyed them. But the best place to talk to us and get up-to-date information from the podcast is on the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server. That's where all of our playgroup and our friends, and we have our own special channel in there. So jump in there to find out more.
Definitely. And of course, don't forget to check out our Patreon page. It's linked in the show notes. It's the best way to support the Get Commanded podcast directly, and there's a bunch of benefits on offer for you. We'd like to thank our patrons, Stella Tam, Fuzzy, and Bottomless Potamus, and an extra special shout out to Fletcher Cutting, who supports us in the Space Commander tier. You're the best.
You are the best. And thanks once again to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring the podcast. These guys create great deck boxes, sleeves, binders, and other games gaming accessories. And you can go to palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded to get 10% off your purchase and support the show at the same time. It really does help us out. And Palms Off Gaming want to work with us for some more content this year. So if you go buy some stuff, we might be doing some gameplay with Jack and Darcy and with the guys there. It's a great YouTube channel. Go subscribe. But these guys are great. Go check them out. palmsoffgaming.com.au /#GetCommanded.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's all the magic stuff. I reckon we better planeswalk out of here into somewhere else. I think it's my turn. I want to planeswalk into speaking of 2024, a show that I have been cast in for this year, or specifically 2 shows. So
it's a double bill, right?
It's a double bill. So I was casting this towards the end of 2023, but basically there's a couple of shows that are going on at 45 Downstairs in Melbourne in May and June of 2024. The tickets are available in the show notes. They're actually already on sale very far in advance. I did
actually notice that they were on sale like when we were recording this only a couple of days ago. And I'm like, oh shit, I need to buy my tickets.
I mean, you got plenty of time obviously to buy them, but the sooner the better. Basically it's the same cast performing 2 different shows and we're alternating nights. So we'll be doing like a Thursday will be one show, which will be Carpet and Sand, which is a new show that's been written by Robert Reed. Really amazing. We read the play script for the first time, all of us, the cast, the other day. Really, really cool, interesting script about a really famous theatre maker, Peter Brook, who went to Africa and with a troupe of actors and basically what conspired there. But it's juxtaposed with the Great Sheep Riot of like 1766 or something in the south of England.
There was a sheep riot?
Yeah, there was 200,000 sheep rampaging through the countryside of England.
Oh my God, how do I not know about this? This
wild.
is brilliant.
Anyway, so that's Carpet and Sand.
Okay.
And the other play is one I've actually performed twice before now. It's a really, really outstanding script by Tom Holloway called 100 Reasons for War.
I think I've heard of this before. Yeah, probably you.
Probably told you about it. So this was a play that was written, I think, for the centenary of the start of World War I. So I think it was written and released in 2014. Basically, it's a sequence of sort of abstract scenes between people. There are no characters in the play, just text. And the director gets to decide who says what and when they say it, pretty much.
Oh, wow, okay.
Very, very interesting, but basically a pretty in-depth look at war and why it happens, and really, really outstanding script, and the cast is incredible. So it's a double bill play. Basically, I'll link it in the show notes. You can either book for one of those 2 shows if one of them jumps out at you more than the other, or for cheaper relatively, you can get a ticket for both of them. So I think the tickets are about $50 for each one, but for $80 you can see both of them.
Oh, well, you've sold me. I'm going for the $80 and seeing both of them, then, aren't I?
So
double bubble.
Yeah, the idea is that the plays actually have some themes in common, and
I see those hundreds and hundreds of sheep and war in the same vein.
Believe it or not, when you look at the 2 of them, there's kind of a similar vibe and a similar thing happening, and the casting has been quite intentional. So anyway, it'll be a very interesting experience where you'll kind of get to just sort of see the same people across these 2 shows and see relationships and see
the blended lines of decisions of actors.
Yeah, and it'll be one night after the other. I think it'll be a really interesting way to experience some theatre in Melbourne. So once again, so at 45 Downstairs, I'll link the tickets in the show notes. But I'm ecstatic to be performing in a proper theatre show next year.
So glad to see you just on stage properly and just absolutely gunning it.
Yeah.
And I doubt this is going to be the only one in 2024.
No, I'd be shocked if it was.
I'm keen for you on stage this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
Me too. But that's all we have time for. So we'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
Goodbye, Commander players.